All people are interesting. Everybody has something to say. Everybody has a story. I'm not the kind of person you want to sit next to on an airplane. I'm interested always in the whys and the hows. And that's whether it's a ballet dancer, a ball player, or a president. Things that are curious to me, they're just things I think about. You never run out of questions.
Larry King. He is the world's great interviewer, quite a treasure here in Los Angeles and also in the United States. He has spent decades interviewing prominent politicians, as well as many of the people and the stars that you see here on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And he has made such a big name for himself along the way that he has become almost as big as the stars themselves. He's known as much for his suspenders as he is for his questioning style. Larry King has spent 3/4 of his life learning about others. What makes them tick, why they choose a certain career path, and who they are when the cameras aren't on. He's sat down with truck drivers, presidents, and every profession in between. An endless list of questions rarely ever written down, asked by perhaps the most curious man on the planet.
Because an addictive personality is always with you, right?
Yes, lifetime commitment.
You call yourself an addict, right?
Yes, I am addict.
You gonna run for governor of Maryland?
We're taking a long, hard look at it.
What does that mean? Whenever I hear that, they're gonna run. If the system is at fault, the system is capitalism. Is socialism the answer? Since you are Daniel Whitney.
That is my real name.
Then why are you Larry, the cable guy? Why did you steal my name?
But after 56 years of shining the spotlight on others, one big question remains. Who is Larry King? So let's turn the tables and find out what makes Larry the king of interviews. What question is there that I could ask the great interviewer himself that you haven't already been asked?
Well, I've been asked many. I guess you could ask of, well, what it's like to be almost 80. And the answer would be, it's weird. Because when I was a kid, no one was 80. I didn't know anyone 80. Men left us in their late 60s, maybe 70s. I had an uncle once, I think, who reached 71. So I never expected this. And I still pinch myself at it all. My father died at age 46. I was 9½. In fact, when I was 46, I thought I would die, because he died at 46. So just to be approaching this, it's kind of a double-edged sword. I appreciate the fact that I'm still here and I still can be active, yet it's weird to think of myself as 80, because I still think of myself as kind of 17.
Larry wasn't always a king. He was born Lawrence Leibel Harvey Zeiger, a Jewish boy who, even from a young age, loved two things: broadcast and the Brooklyn Dodgers. And that love for baseball is something that Larry carries with him even to this day. He has written books and interviewed scores of players. He even put in a bid to try to buy the Dodgers franchise back in 2011. In fact, some of Larry's favorite memories are from baseball. Is there a favorite moment in your life, a favorite memory?
When the Dodgers won the World Series in 1955, the Yankees had beaten us 5 World Series, and we finally won one. And I can relive that whole last inning. I later got to meet all the people involved: the pitcher, Johnny Padres, Elston Howard, who made the last out, Pee Wee Reese, who threw him out. I interviewed Reese. I interviewed everybody involved in that game. But when they won that pennant, and I was 21 years old, and had lived through the pain of losing, being very good and still losing. I've had a lot of moments, but a personal moment was winning that World Series.
Larry's career started off at a small radio station in Miami, where he worked the morning shift as a disc jockey, along with 2 afternoon newscasts and a sportscast later in the evening. After a day full of radio work, he'd walk over to a small restaurant called Puppernick's, where Larry would interview the first person to sit down in his radio booth. For years, this was Larry's schedule, bouncing from one gig to the next, color commentating for the Miami Dolphins football team on the side. 3 years later, he took his radio program to a television audience and spread his influence even further by writing columns for the Miami Herald and Miami News entertainment sections. In no time, Larry King became Mr. Miami. It was this legacy of hard work that Larry brought with him when he joined Ted Turner's CNN in 1985.
Good evening. My name is Larry King, and this is the premiere edition of Larry King Live. Every night at this time, we'll be here for 1 hour. We're going to meet fascinating people from all walks of life.
For the next 25 years, Larry King Live entertained and informed audiences all over the world. He now holds the world record for hosting the most shows on the same network during the same time slot at 9 p.m. Eastern, a slot that he holds with his new politicking show on RT. Larry King was the face of CNN. But then on June 29, 2010, after interviewing over 40,000 guests, breaking the news, making the news, and so much more, Larry King announced his retirement.
I talked to the guys here at CNN, and I told them I'd like to end Larry King Live, the nightly show that this fall and CNN has graciously accepted to agree to.
During this announcement, Larry said he wanted to spend more time going to the baseball games of his two young sons, 13-year-old Cannon and 14-year-old Chance. And just when everyone thought Larry King had retired for good,
It is all next on Politicking with Larry King.
he hit the airwaves yet again, this time on RT with not one but two shows. Larry King Now and Politicking.
You sound like a peacenik.
I am.
And most people would assume that frogmen would be gung-ho militarist nationalists. Do you think the public is just plain tired of war?
Yeah, I understand
Iraq,
it.
Afghanistan. In fact, there's no stories anymore about Afghanistan. Boys coming home. Both Patty and Caesar attempted suicide. We'll talk at length a little about that. Let's get into it. Why did you try to kill yourself? I found I missed it a lot. I missed the action. I missed this whole, I like interviewing people. I missed the whole shtick. I missed media. I just missed it. And then someone, Vince Scully, the Dodger announcer, who's 86 and signed on for another year, said that he came back because he's past the age of retirement. I thought that was funny. So I must be past the age of retirement.
Beyond the age of retirement and still full of questions.
I don't know where the stamina comes from, and I hope it keeps up. I take a lot of vitamins. I take prescription pills too. And I try to keep my mind alert. I read a lot. I'm always reading books. I stay active in things. I'm a political junkie. I'm a sports junkie. I have a great staff around that helps a lot. I don't understand it myself. I'm thankful for it. It is what it is.
It is a 5, sometimes 6-day-a-week work schedule, timed down to the minute. 4 days a week he hosts Larry King Now. Thursday nights, Politicking takes over RT's late-night airwaves. It is then re-aired the next day in English and also translated into Spanish and Arabic for RT's global audience, which reaches over 600 million people. A rigorous schedule even for someone in the height of their career, let alone an 80-year-old seasoned interviewer. So, how does he do it?
It's only a half hour rather than an hour, and it's very relaxed. It's not a news network, so the atmosphere is more relaxed. The set is homier. The feeling is different. It moves a little faster. The part I miss is, when you're doing now, you do news every day. I miss staying on top of a news story. I don't get to do that. When there's a shooting, the idiotic guns laws in America we have shootings every day. When there's a shooting or some kind of tragedy, I want to be in the hunt. You know, when 9/11 happened, I worked for 73 straight nights. I was at Ground Zero 2 weeks after it happened. I was in the mix. I miss that kind of action. So the show I'm doing is easier, much easier to do, much more relaxed, much more informal.
And on a much different platform than Larry has ever used to communicate before. He's written newspaper columns and books. His iconic voice has transmitted over the radio. But his new show started on the internet before hitting the airwaves of an international network that is broadcast from Asia through Europe, as well as in North and South America.
I thought I wouldn't be, but I'm a part of the internet. And funny about technology, I've always been benefited from it, but I've never understood it. When I started on the radio, I don't know how we're transmitting now. You know, you and I are talking, and people are going to see us in their homes, in a box. How? How does it get from us to that box? I don't know. I know it does. So what I'm doing is nothing different than what I did in Miami in 1957. When I started, that's 56 years ago. I'm doing the same thing. I'm doing what you're doing. I'm asking questions, getting answers, but I'm being transmitted. I remember first time I was on a satellite, I couldn't believe it. I was doing my radio show, and the guests would sometimes, if they weren't in the studio, would be on the phone. And then they said, well, you don't need the phone now. You got satellite. What's a satellite? Satellite, where you beam up, and then when it says CNN, you go up 22,500 miles, and you beam down across the street and into Moscow. How does that work? Try to explain that to Thomas Jefferson. So I accept technology. I'm rooted in it, but I don't. Do I understand how it works? I do not.
And what you did right there is a very good example of why you are still doing what you are doing, which is asking questions.
Yeah.
Do you think there will ever be a day when you run out of questions?
No, never. And robots will never host a show. And no, because all people are interesting. Everybody has something to say. Some may be more interesting than others, but everybody's got a story. Everybody has a story. And people are fascinating. And I'm not the kind of person you want to sit next to on an airplane, because I'm constantly curious about why. I can go back to I remember like 9, 10 years old, I get on a bus and ask the bus driver, why do you want to drive a bus? Pilots, why do you want to fly a plane? And things that are curious to me, they're just things I think about all the time. I was at an airport the other day and I was talking to the pilot, and I said to him, when we're going down the runway, do you know it's going to take off?
That's a good question.
Aha! You never run out of questions.
Did you know the press is the only industry specifically mentioned in the Constitution?
Stand by.
That's because a free and open press is critical to our democracy.
Track Alpha. Roll Alpha.
In fact, the single biggest threat facing our nation today is the corporate takeover of our government and our press.
Stand by, camera 1.
We've been hijacked by a handful of powerful transnational corporations that will profit by destroying what our founding fathers once built up. I'm Tom Hartman, and on this show, we reveal the big picture of what's actually going on in the world. We go beyond identifying the problem.
We try to fix it.
Rational debate and a real discussion of the critical issues facing America.
Stand by on camera. Go.
Ready to join the movement? Then welcome to the big picture.
Because of his curiosity, King has won enough awards to fill an entire room.
This is my ego room. Like, whenever I'm feeling a little low, I go in here and I look at all this. I still can't believe it. I still pinch myself every day.
A lifetime worth of interviews landed Larry the Peabody Award for Excellence in Broadcasting in 1982 for his radio shows. It was the first time a radio talk show was ever awarded such an honor. In 1989, he was inducted into the National Radio Hall of Fame. Larry went on to win yet another Peabody Award for Excellence in Broadcasting for his television program in 1992. 4 years later, he was inducted into the Broadcasters Hall of Fame. The next year, he was given his very own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Then, in 2011, Larry won the Lifetime Achievement Emmy. He also won 10 cable ACE awards for Best Interviewer and Best Talk Show Series over the course of his career. Hard work coupled with the ability to transform along with the mediums the news is conveyed on. During his time in the limelight, Larry has seen so many of these metamorphoses from print to satellite to the internet. The way the world ingests the news looks nothing like it did in 1956, when Larry Zeiger started out, something that he is keenly aware of.
Over the years, you have seen journalism change so much. What is journalism today?
It's everything. Everybody's a blogger, everybody's a journalist. Immediacy there's a good and bad. For example, when the bombs occurred in Boston, we knew about it instantly, and the pictures were taken of the culprits, and that went on the internet, in the newspaper, and they were found and caught. On the other hand, some wrong people were identified. People jumped to the news too quick, put some wrong information out, and people were hurt. So with good came bad. With this instant communication and 24-hour news, and everybody trying to top everybody else, which you have a lot of jumbo journalism. So sometimes I think back to the days when there were 3 networks and PBS, and maybe we were a little better off. We knew our Walter Cronkites and our Huntley Brinkleys, and we knew our ABC, NBC, CBS, and we knew that Edward R. Murrow was atop the scene, and we counted on them.
And those Walter Cronkites and Edward R. Murrows have become a dying breed in the never-ending pursuit for breaking news. However, there are some things that Larry refuses to let go of.
I love newspapers, and I read 5 or 6 a day, and my first thrill in the morning is picking up that news. I like newsprint on my fingernails. You don't get that. Newspapers they're irrelevant because you know the story. I like news for background. I like op-ed pages. I like to read. Reading is gone. My kids, they're both big sports fans. I'll see something in a paper and I'll read this. They know it already. And everything's on their little computers and all their little things. And so I'm in the world of technology. I accept it, but there's a lot I miss. I have more information now. I might have had better information then. And then everybody's a journalist. You can block things out. Rumors spread. False things go out on people. People tweet things out and they're wrong and then they're right. And it's a whole, I don't know if I'd want to be a kid today. I wonder what their world's going to be like because it's totally unpredictable. But I'm curious enough to want to know what's going to happen next. If you lose your curiosity, then I feel sorry for people who don't read or who don't ask questions and people do it a lot in life. People are asking questions, but I do it for a living. I'm getting paid for doing something that I would do anyway. I mean, I would ask questions anyway. So if I were with someone and if I'm sitting with a president, whether I was on the air or not, I'd still be asking questions.
Well, let's speak about some of the people that you have talked to. You have interviewed every single president since Nixon. Was there a time when you started to really get a grasp of the person rather than the politician?
It always was the person. When I interviewed authors, I was more interested in the author than the book. The book was secondary to the author. What motivated the book, how he got involved in this. So what fascinated me about politicians, whether they're presidents or a mayor, is what politicians do is something we don't do. They put themselves on the line. And they have what we don't have. They have a November. We don't have a November. They have a November. And people count, and they get accepted or rejected. We may have ratings and stuff, but that's passing. So when you want to be president, what fascinating? Why do you want to? Why would you want to be? Why would someone want to be president? And I'm curious about what's it like to be president. What's it like when the phone rings at 3 in the morning? Can't be a good call. If your phone rings at 3 in the morning, can't be a good call. So I'm interested always in the whys and the hows, and that's whether it's a ballet dancer, a ball player, or a president. It's still who, what, where, when, why. We all have that all the time. Who, what, where, when, why.
Because of the name Larry has built for himself over the years as a fair interviewer, he has had the opportunity to become close with the presidents. If one interviewer could pick up the phone and get a president on the line, Larry would be your guy. He's seen them on their best days, reported on their worst days, and has come to know what they are like off the camera.
Nixon was an incredibly bright, insecure, interesting, involved. I don't know how great a leader he was, but he was a great analyst. If I were running a network, he'd be the first one I'd hire to tell me how a situation got to be the way it is. I don't know if he'd solve it well, but he analyzed things well. He saw the big picture, and he loved sports. So I loved talking sports with him. Ford was a great guy. Just hail fellow, well meant. Pat you on the back, just a real good guy. I got a personal handwritten letter from him here. We did a special on him, and he wrote me a long letter on appreciating it. He was just a genuine guy. Carter was extremely interesting. Control freak, a hands-on kind of guy. People dismiss Carter, but they forget that he captained a nuclear submarine. I don't know many people who've captained nuclear submarines. He's the greatest former president. He does more work. Never financially crazy. A lot of presidents get to, what do I make after I get out of office? Carter wasn't interested in that. And I genuinely liked him and appreciated his goodwill. And he had a nice manner about him. While he was not a strong person, he was mannerable. Reagan was a raconteur, storyteller, easy to be with, fun. I was with him at an interesting stage of his life. I interviewed him right after his presidency. We talked about being shot and everything. And then I got to see him when he slowly was getting Alzheimer's. So like he would tell a story, and then a half hour later tell the same story, not realize that he told it. And that was kind of sad, but he was fun to be around. Bush one, wonderful guy. Interested in you, knew the names of your kids. Bush was the kind of guy, if he came to your house, would write a thank you letter in the car on the way home. Wrote a lot, handwritten letters. And I love Barbara. Barbara Bush got mad at me the first time when I was wearing braces. She said, "Don't wear a jacket in the White House?" Well, we've become good friends, but she was mad that I had, but this is my shtick. Clinton was the best in terms of, for an interview subject, nobody better. Brilliant, unbelievable chemistry, looks you right in the eye, answers the questions you've asked. Bush number 2, I liked for his baseball stuff. I wasn't a great fan of his presidency, but that didn't matter to him. What you thought of him didn't matter to him, which was really a nice trait. Whereas Nixon would be, what does he think of me? Bush didn't care. But I had one of the funniest times, best times I ever had in the White House was when I didn't do a broadcast. But I wrote a book called Why I Love Baseball. And I got invited to spend 2 hours in the Oval Office with President Bush, just talking baseball. No politics, no media, no baseball. And at the end of it, I had just arrived in Washington, and he was leaving to go to California. And I remember he said to me, "You want a lift? You want to go back to California? We could go back on Air Force One and talk more baseball." But I had to stay to do tapes. And that was kind of a cookie sort of thrill. Obama is well within himself. Obama's not a hugger. He's a law professor. I like him a lot. He's a great speech maker. I find him easy to be around, but not loving. But he's well within himself. He's comfortable within himself. Great father and a great family man.
Despite unparalleled access to some of the biggest names in politics, industry, and entertainment, in his many books and talks, Larry says he still holds true to the Brooklyn boy he was before fame fell upon him. In fact, looking back, he says he might not have chosen to be Larry King, the famous interviewer, if he did it all again.
That I think I'd rather have been a stand-up comedian. Because of all the things I've accomplished and all nice things, the biggest kick I get is making people laugh. Last night I emceed a dinner honoring George Slaughter, the famous producer of Laughing, and I said some funny things. And when you say something funny and the audience laughs, there is no higher hit than that. There's no bigger hit. That's better than smoking joints. There's nothing like it. There's a thrill that goes through you when you can make someone laugh. And the stand-up comic has a daily life of that. And so I've had a lot of rewards in my life, but the reward of laughter, I did a comedy tour, I do a lot of speaking, but to have it on a regular basis, to be funny for a living, that's it.
Now, because of his 56 years of experience, Larry King's face can be seen from sea to shining sea, on everything from taxis to buses.
Larry King's face is so famous, people can identify him without it.
The nice part is that our logo just has glasses and suspenders. There's no face in the logo, and hair, and people know who it is, which is nice to be identified.
As for his legacy,
I hope that I entertained and informed, that when people tuned in and listened to me on the radio, or watched me on television, or watched me on the internet, or read columns, or read a book, that I made their life a little better, that they learned more at the end of a show than they knew at the beginning, and that along the way they were entertained. And then if you can add that little touch, Meghan, to someone's life at home who appreciates you, and people come over and say they enjoy your work. I guess that's for other people to say, but I think I've added to the culture.
56 years and still asking questions, proving that even in a democracy, we still answer to the king.
Thank you, guys.